Well, I'm descending down into Oakdale from Harriman. It's about 4 miles away from Harriman, so right now is where you turn to go down into Oakdale. Trying to film and drive, I'm being very, very careful. But the road has changed quite a bit since the 1950s. They built this road here, going across, this bridge going across the Emory River. This wasn't here back when I was a young boy. The road went on around like this to descend down into Oakdale. But as you can see, it was curvy. There was a small church right here on the left of this road when I was a boy. And this is the main railroad, Southern Railway, going through town. The station is no longer there. The old YMCA, where we used to go and have ice cream, is no longer there. I'll talk about that later. But the main bridge used to go straight across from here, right across that way, and we'll look at that later on. But that's the way it used to go, across from one side of Oakdale to the other side of Oakdale. Then we go this way here to the right is the way that we would go to the house where I lived for a couple of years at different times. But this is one of the bluffs that we go under. Later I'll talk about it, but there was a cliff, of course you can see that, but there's a cave up there. And we used to hang down from above and swing into the cave. I'll try to show that from the other side of the creek here soon. But right there, in that little place there, about where the little bench is, was the church, First Baptist Church of Oakdale. And my grandfather was the pastor there, Dr. David Burris. I'm passing a lot of these things quickly, but I'll tell more about it later on as I drive through. And then I'm going to walk it also. But this is totally different through here than when I was a boy. That house right there was my grandfather's parsonage, and David, my brother, was born in that front bedroom here on the left. I'm going to park here in the church's parking lot because it's close to where I used to live as a boy. Let me turn right here. And I'm going to park very close to where my house, or our house, was located. Let me park right here. Well, I'm located where our house was back in 1956. We lived in a rental house here, and I placed some sticks on the pavement here to kind of show where the front of the house was, and I believe that's pretty close. So let me kind of point out some things to you about the location. So the front of the house was somewhere in this area right here. And you see it slopes back. Had a small little porch. Of course, none of this pavement was here. It was kind of grass all around this area here. And the back of the house was somewhere in this vicinity. And of course, underneath the house was just dirt, about half of it. And that's where we used to keep our toys. I kept a lot of my little cars that I would play in the dirt, make bridges and roads. It is also a place where we would hold our Little Rascals Club, which was made up of my cousins and myself and my uncle and my older brother. But we had wonderful times as children. And this right here, this is where we lived. A little bit about the house. It was just all wood frame. And it's like it had shingles on the side of the house. which you'll see in a lot of old pictures. Of course, that's the train if you can hear it. Not too far, about half a mile from where we are right now. But we played in the front yard here quite a bit. Of course, this road right here was not here then. Actually, this was all parking area. Dad would come down. We had a gravel road that came down about right like that, and then we would park in this area here. In this area right here was a coal bin. Our house didn't have heat other than a potbelly stove in the kitchen. We did not have running water. We had an outhouse in the back near the edge of the paved area there that we would walk to if we had to go to the bathroom. So we did have electricity, but we had no running water, and so what we would have to do is come up here to the well, and we'd drop a long tube down the well, and it would capture water. Let me see if... Of course, this was round, and if you could see down in there, I think there's still water there. I wouldn't drink it, but there is water there. Now also about right here, going across here, up to the road, there was a large building, and that was a store front where you could go and buy some groceries. And so if we needed something quickly, we could go in there, and I think that was Watson's store. Now this hasn't changed hardly any. Right here, this creek was here when I was a boy. And it went down that way, and then it curved to the larger creek. But when my brother and I were smaller, we were playing in the car in this area here. It kind of was up like that. And David, my older brother, says that I took it out of here, and it rolled back into the ditch. And of course, Dad was not very happy at that. But we got out, and I don't think we either one got a spanking, which is good. Now I'm going to show you something else quickly. But I was in the 2nd grade here, and I think David was in the 6th grade. He might have gone 2 years here. But of course, none of this was here. This was all, there were other houses back down that way. This church was not here. But there was a dirt path that led up that way along this rock wall. That house has always been there. But we would walk that way, and then the school was up there. And I'll tell you more about that later on. Where that building is right there, back in the 40s, my father, when he was much younger, and I think when he went to high school here, they lived there. And when he married Mom, there's some pictures of them up against the wall in that very area there. Now I'm going to quickly go down to the creek. I still have the intentions of coming back with my brother. There's so much to tell about this area and things that we did. He will remember things that I don't remember. But whenever it would snow heavy, this creek would be high, and it would actually freeze over. Whenever you had a good wet season, a lot more water would be flowing. But I can't tell you how much I played in this creek, up and down, all the way to the river, all the way up to First Falls, which I'll try to show you later. But it would freeze, and we would get on makeshift sleds, and we would come down this mountain and come into the ice river here to stop. A lot of memories, a lot of fun. Again, just as a reminder, our outhouse was somewhere right in this area here. So here I am playing in the creek, and our outhouse is right here. Oh well, that's the way it was in the 50s. Okay, I'm going to walk on up and walk around this road right here, because as a little boy I'd often walk that way around to my grandmother when they lived up further up on the hill. Just a quick note, this is just a little ways from where I was before, but this wall right here, I have a picture, and maybe I can show it, of my mother and father standing against that. There was a gate right here, and there's an old car parked right there. But it's a picture of him in his Navy uniform, and also a picture of my grandfather Sneed, Felix Sneed, which I never knew. He died before I was born. But there was a house that they lived in that was right in this area right here. And again, this is where the high school was, the elementary school. That was a playground that was paved. And that's where I put a dead bee down a boy's back that I got a spanking in the 2nd grade in front of everybody. Believe it or not, I learned a very valuable lesson from that. Not to upset the teacher. The way to get to my grandmother's house when she lived up on here, which I'll show you later on, you had to go up this hill. It went up that way, and then it went down to a house. That was always a scary drive. This road here leads to the back way out of Oakdale and heads north toward Sunbright. I'm walking around a way that I used to walk quite a bit to get to my grandmother Burris's house. I've always wondered about this here. Obviously it was a bridge, but I didn't know if it was a back way to go up to the main highway there, or did it go to somebody's house? If it went to somebody's house, that sure is a well-built structure there, just for a use like that. Okay, coming around to my grandmother's house. She lived up there. We'll see if we can find it. But these are the steps to her house. Boy, they are really depleted. But what I remember about this, grandmother always planted flowers up and down this mountain or this hill. And I can see that there's a remainders of some of them still here. I think I missed the bloom. That was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. But she always had beautiful flowers on this bank. And at Easter time we would always come, and I think I have several pictures of us in this area right here. So, used to play up and down these hills, up and down these creeks. About the only place to park here is right there. That's where we used to park, to walk up to grandmother's house. So I'm going to try to go up to this house. I was told that somebody may live here. I think my dad actually put this railing in. Of course, it came all the way down. It was a very sturdy structure. So here we go. Let's see if I can walk up there, and I hope I'll be okay. You can see this is not easy. Let me see if the house is still here. This walkway went up this way. Well, I don't think the house is here. You can see where the flowers were along the walkway up. So let's see. No, the house is gone. Okay, I'm traveling from Harriman to Oakdale, and this is kind of the last little leg before we turn left to go down into Oakdale. One thing I'll show you when I turn left to go down toward Oakdale will be a little store on the right. Many years ago, back in the 30s, I think, there was a liquor store there. And my grandfather and the sheriff and some other men came up and had a warrant of arrest, and also they were able to destroy all the liquor in the store. So that's right here. As I turn left here, you'll see it on the right. Of course, that's not the store because they literally went inside and they tore down the shelves and also destroyed all the liquor. I'm down in a part of Oakdale that was very important to me and my family. This area right here is where the First Baptist Church of Oakdale was located. I'll show you a little bit closer here once I tell you a little bit about that. But my grandfather Burris, Dr. David Burris, was the pastor here for a number of years. And I can remember coming here as a boy. We would walk down from the parsonage, which is right up there. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. We'd walk down to church early in the morning sometimes with my grandmother, and we'd go into the basement, and we would have to put some coal into an old furnace there and heat up the church before we had church services. Wonderful memories. I think my Uncle John, I remember he got married in this church to my Aunt Jenny. And I can just remember being in the church as a little boy. And one time, my granddaddy was preaching, and I'm told this story. I don't remember it because a lot of times I was so small I'd go to sleep in the pew. But my brother, he's about 4 to 5 years older than I am, he's kind of raised up in the pew and said, "Granddaddy, it's time to go home." And I think my grandfather just laughed it off. But I think my mom and dad were not too happy about that. But I remember going to VBS here, Vacation Bible School, and just wonderful, wonderful memories. I believe, in fact, that my mother and father met in this church. I think the way the story goes is that Mama was singing in the choir, and my dad kept winking and winking at her, and eventually they started dating. So that's kind of a neat story that I remember as a boy. Okay, let's see if I can tell you a little bit more about this. But the church probably was right there is where it began, and you had to go up steps, and of course the church sanctuary was up on that level there, and people would come and cars would park in this area here without going over into the creek. But of course we would play all in this area here. This road was just a dirt road at that time that went around. Most of this was parking in this area here. And I said earlier, this park was not here. There were houses over there. And this was not here at that time. In fact, there was a large house here. I think it was a 2-story home. And I'm pretty certain that my grandmother Sneed lived here for a time. In fact, I think I have an old photograph where my father is standing in front of the house with his 2 sisters, my Aunt Martha and Aunt Imogene. Great, great memories. And the school, high school and elementary school was up there.